Why? Why does it keep happening? Okay, let's do this. Stay focused. We can do this. Just take it easy. Pause. Man, why? Why again? Okay, we can do this. We can make this work. It simply has to work. Please. Pause. Man, why? Why? Okay, we try again. Pause. I can't do this anymore. Oh my god. Why? Why is it happening every single time? Chapter 1. Here's what happened. Rewind. At the end of December 2023, it was the first time I was probably training on the bike during winter. I bought myself an indoor training setup and enjoyed it way more than I expected it to. It was the first winter that I trained consistently. During intensive intervals, I started to notice my knee feeling a bit stiff, but nothing I was too worried about at the time. At the beginning of January 2024, I had a crash on my gravel bike. It was a cold and icy day and I misjudged a corner and went down. While riding back home, I noticed that my left knee was swollen and hurting quite a lot, even though the impact had been more on my right side. Ironically, it was the same knee that had already felt a bit off weeks earlier. I took it easy for a few days and then started riding again on my indoor trainer, even though the pain wasn't fully gone. I just invested so much into my winter training and didn't want to give it up. At first, things seemed to improve. But a few weeks later, in a stupid moment, I hit my knee hard against the door frame. You idiot. It swollen up again. And from that point on, it never fully recovered. Chapter 2. The mental struggle. My body had never let me down before. Throughout my life, I'd never had any major health problems and had always recovered quickly from injuries. So I assumed it would be the same this time. The doctor said it was just a bruise and that I needed to rest. I even had an MRI scan which showed nothing unusual, but the injury persisted. It just wouldn't go away. I didn't know what to make of that feeling, not knowing what was going on inside my own body. I started questioning everything, desperate to find an answer. There had to be a reason, and I felt like I just had to find it. I went from doctor to doctor, had various blood tests, researched endlessly online, and went to physiotherapy. My mind began to revolve around almost nothing else. Even when I didn't want to think about it, I couldn't stop. And the more I got caught up in it, the worse I felt. 2024 was not my year. Around the same time as my injury, my relationship ended, and I realized I was becoming increasingly dissatisfied with my work situation. That summer, things really began to escalate. I had planned a 3-week bikepacking trip to Scandinavia, cycling with an easy pace had been going fairly well, so I decided to give it a try. But 10 days before I left, I developed a severe tendonitis in my wrist. I went to a doctor and he didn't completely rule out the trip, but only if my wrist healed well over the next few days. So I rested as much as I could. I'd already experienced several major setbacks that year and wasn't willing to give up on this long-term planned trip I'd been looking forward to for so damn long. In retrospect, I might have been a bit too stubborn. Yeah, you were. I set off, and at first my wrist held up well. I tried to protect it with tape and a splint. The trip itself was a roller coaster. Day 1 went great. Day 2 was when the struggle began, but not with my wrist. Both of my thumbs started hurting, and I had no fucking idea why. I took a rest day and continued riding. Day 3 and 4 were beautiful. Everything seemed to come together. I enjoyed the stunning Swedish nature and camped at some of the most beautiful spots I'd ever stayed up at this point. Day 5 and 6 got worse again, and on day 7 I seriously began to doubt whether continuing made sense. In 7 days I had made it from Copenhagen to Gothenburg, but there were 7 days of rain ahead and my hands were still hurting on and off. It was incredibly hard, but I decided to cut the trip short. To give up. God, that felt awful. In retrospect, I know it was the right decision, even if it didn't feel like it at the time. When I got home, it really hit me. I felt like my whole body was turning against me. My knee hurt. My wrists and thumbs hurt. For an entire month, right in the middle of summer, I couldn't do any sports at all. In fact, I couldn't even walk more than a few hundred meters without pain. I was forced to rest. And then I realized something very important. My body was trying to tell me something. For God's sake, don't always fight against it. Listen. Try to accept that you need rest. Try to accept that constantly going head to head with your body creates so much mental stress that it eventually shows up physically. From that point on, things slowly started to improve. Chapter 3: Acceptance. After about a month, my hands began to feel better. During that time, I realized something else. My hands were kind of an indicator of how much stress I was under. This had happened occasionally in previous years, but never this intensely. As for my knee, I went back to physical therapy and saw doctors again. Based on my symptoms, I was diagnosed with a plica syndrome. A plica syndrome is an irritation or inflammation of a fold of a tissue inside a knee joint, which can cause pain, restrict movement, and potentially long-term cartilage damage. The doctor said it could be removed quite easily through surgery. Physiotherapists advised against it and told me that strength training could be very effective. I wanted to avoid surgery, so I started incorporating more strength training into my daily routine. Over the course of 2025, my knee stabilized, but it never became completely pain-free. With almost every pedal stroke, I felt a kind of cracking sensation. It wasn't painful, but it was irritating. Intervals caused pain. So structured training wasn't really possible. I learned to accept that and was simply grateful to be able to ride again. Running was more difficult. Sometimes it worked, but more often than not, it ended up in pain and tension for several days. Today I will start one last try. In fall of 2025, I decided to make one final serious attempt. I started going to the gym more regularly. Over the summer, I had once again neglected strength training, so in the fall I decided to give it one big push. One last try. I decided to give it one last push and to go to the gym for 10 weeks straight, 2 times a week, and really go to until my muscle fails. So doing as much reps as I possibly can, because that's the best way to get muscle growth, which I need for my knee to get better. So that's the theory. Together with my physical therapist, I created a plan to finally tackle my knee issues. The idea was to strengthen the muscles around the knees to such an extent that the knee itself would be relieved. That meant a wide variety of exercises with maximum effort, training to muscle failure in every set. I'm currently in Portugal, and that didn't stop me from sticking to my plan. And yesterday I called the gym and asked for a trial session, and they said, yeah, no problem, you just can come by. And today was just one of these days which it was mentally a bit tough. My mind saying, yeah, just do one less rep or yeah, stuff like this. And these, I think, are the days which are important to just push through it and do it. And yeah, now, afterwards, I feel much better in doing so, because otherwise I would sit here now and just think, oh, I didn't give like 100%, and that's the most important thing of doing this. just going 2 times a week, but just going full throttle and doing it all out. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. The goal was to push to the limit every single time. Repetitions didn't matter as much, just as many as possible. Until then, I'd always trained with a specific number of reps in my mind. Reaching that number felt like a success. Now not having a clear target was mentally challenging. Often the biggest hurdle was just getting myself to the gym. Once I was there, I managed to push through. So it's Christmas Eve and I'm at my mother's place, and yeah, I went to the gym here. And yeah, my energy levels are really low for the last few weeks. It's quite tough to stick to going 2 times a week to the gym and giving my all there. Still manage it to do it today, so pretty proud of that. Didn't thought that going to the gym 2 times a week could be that hard. But yeah, it's quite hard training, so yeah. But it will be worth it at the end. As the weeks went by, fatigue built up. And I noticed I felt more sluggish in everyday life. After one failed attempt at running, I had to take a few days off. But otherwise I stuck to the plan. I cycle less, partially because of the intense gym sessions left me without much strength for the bike. Still, I kept telling myself it was okay, that all of this would be worth it and pay off in the long run, so I will be able to cycle again and to run without any issues. Chapter 5. Did it work? Well, did it work? Unfortunately, not the way I had hoped. I could feel myself getting stronger, but my symptoms didn't improve. At times it even felt like pushing to the limit was irritating my knee more. So I took the final decision. So I decided to have the surgery. I underwent the procedure 5 days ago, and here I am with my knee, holding it up here so it can heal better. Everything went fine. I'm glad that I did one last try and one last big attempt in just making it possible without the surgery, but unfortunately it didn't work out. Building up the muscles was also important before the surgery, so no matter which outcome this last attempt would have, it would benefit myself. For now I'm trying to recover, taking things easier, and hopefully my knee will be good from now and I will be able to cycle and run again without any pain and problems. Yeah. I hope you liked this more intimate video. I felt much more secure to write things down and tell more like a structured story. Yeah. From now on, I just want to try to go back at it and just give my best to recover as best as I can to be able to do the thing that I love the most, which is cycling. To be able to finally don't think about should I go riding or not because I have a knee that causes some problems. Man, that's one thing I'm really looking forward to. I also have to say I have a bit of anxiety about the results of the surgery. Yet I can't really say how it turned out. It just needs some time. Yeah, but I hope so much that it finally resolves the problem that I had for 2 years. I got to work with it and noticed myself how I can deal with it, but all along it was really stressful in my mind to not be able to do the sport that I like so much in the way I want to, and to be restricted by my knee problems. But in the long term I learned a lot about those 2 years. I learned a lot about my body. I learned to hear more into it, and if I feel a problem, then not to overlook it. Like maybe I could have prevented this if I, after the crash, didn't got back into training with still feeling pain. Maybe that helps you out or as a reminder for yourself to take it a bit easier when you are noticing that your body needs some rest. Yeah. And I also learned physical problems like knee injuries can also resolve into like big mental struggle. 2025 was so intense for me in terms of like thinking that I was sick, but I wasn't sick. Like my knee, of course, was a problem, but otherwise I was really healthy. But in this year, I didn't want to really believe in it, or like I couldn't see it. That's also a thing that I learned, that to look more into the things that are working well and to be grateful for my own health and not make everything dependent on one stupid knee. I hope you like this more intimate video, and yeah, I will be back with some cycling videos in the future. It will need a bit of time, as you can imagine, but man, I can't wait to be back on the bike. But I will need a time that my knee needs to fully recover. That's definitely a thing I learned. Yeah, so see you in the next one. Bye.